What's up everybody, Ryan Hafey here with Hafey Digital, and welcome to my man cave. Okay, let's get this situated here. Good, how am I looking? So yes, this is my man cave. This is my creation station / workout room, I guess you could say. And there's two reasons why I decided to kind of combine the two. The first reason really just comes down to space. I wanted a workout room. I wanted an office. We only had one extra room, which is this room I'm in right now. So we decided to combine the two. But that actually works out okay because of point number 2, which is that if I'm ever stuck working on a project and I just can't figure out what I want to do next, I can always just kind of stop what I'm doing, get up, maybe hit the heavy bag for a little bit, do a few pull-ups, maybe skip a little bit of rope. And by the time I'm done with that, I can usually sit back down. I got the blood flowing, the creative juices are flowing, and the ideas tend to just come right back out and I get out of my creative rut. Sorry for the long introduction. Let's just go ahead and jump right into the subject matter at hand for this particular video, which happens to be speed ramp transitions, kind of like the one you just saw in the beginning of this video. See what I did there? Hey, what's this button do? All right, so before we jump into Premiere and I show you how to actually go in and put the speed ramp transition into play, there's a couple things you need to remember when it comes to planning your shots around using a speed ramp transition. The first thing is speed ramp transitions tend to work best between clips where there's a little bit of motion in them. So for example, if you had two shots where the subject is just very, formally and not, he's just kind of sitting right in the middle of the frame like this, and you want to transition to another clip where someone is sitting right in the middle of the frame like this, it's probably not going to look too well because it's just going to be two static figures moving from one to the next. A lot of times panning shots from away from the subject and then into the subject from one clip to the next works really well, or just shots where there's a lot of movement and you can kind of use some of that movement to create a smooth kind of flush transition between the two clips. The other thing to keep in mind, the speed ramp transition you saw in the beginning of this video uses kind of that slow-mo to very quick back to slow motion type of technique. If that's the technique you want to go for, you want to make sure that you're shooting your clips at a faster frame rate, say 60 or 120 frames per second, and editing them in a timeline that's 24 or 30 frames per second. So without further ado, let's jump into Premiere. All right, so step 1, the first thing you want to do before you start actually editing your clips with the speed ramp transition is to find the clips that you actually want to use and to go through and set your in and out points for each of those clips. That'll just save you a little time in the editing process. So as you can see here in this project panel, I've got 3 clips set up. One for the heavy bag, one for the pull-ups, and one for the jump rope clips. And I have set my in and out points for each of those. And what I'm gonna do here for this first clip with the heavy bags, I'm gonna click. I don't need the audio, so I'm not gonna drag on the clip here. I'm just gonna click on this little video icon, click and drag onto the timeline. Now when I do that, I'm gonna get this little pop-up that asks me if I want to match the sequence settings. And in this case, I don't, because as you can see, this clip was shot at 60 frames a second. I'm gonna be editing the clips in a 24 frame per second timeline. So I want to keep the sequence settings the same so that I can stretch that clip out a little bit and get some slow motion action going on. So I'm gonna click Keep Existing Settings. You'll see the clip pop up there. Now, before I get into showing you the time remapping technique that I use for my speed ramp transitions, I want to show you another technique that I see a lot of people using. I actually used to use it myself quite a bit, which is a little bit less flexible. It's basically a combination of the rate stretch and the cut tool. So I'll show you what that means here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to press the R button on my keyboard. You can also go over here and select the rate stretch tool. Now for starters, because I know I want the clip to be kind of slow motion and then quickly speed up into the speed transition, I'm gonna drag this out till it's about, bring it right around, 40% or so is good. And as you can see, it kind of plays back nice and slow. Now what you would typically do with this particular technique is you would scrub through and look for the point right when the camera starts to pan to the left. So I'm gonna say right here, I'll go ahead and I'll grab my cut tool or press the C button on the keyboard, make a cut right there. and then I'll go back to my rate stretch tool, press the R key, and then this clip on to the right of the cut, which is the part of the clip that I want to go super fast, I'm gonna drag it over, and as you can see, if you zoom in here, it's now at 307%. I might even go a little bit more. So now it's at 769% of its original speed, and you'll see what this looks like right here. Nice and slow, boom, really quick. Now technically this technique can work for you depending on the type of look you're going for, but it does have two major drawbacks. The first being, let's say you've made your initial cut and you're kind of going through, you're playing it back, and then you realize that where the speed transition starts is not exactly where you would have wanted it. You can't exactly just use your selector tool, lengthen this clip, and then shorten this clip. It just won't work like that anymore because you've made a hard cut there, and one clip is slow, one clip is fast. It's just not gonna work right. The other major drawback is that the transition from slow to fast is just super abrupt. It's super sharp. It just slow, boom, fast. And there's really nothing you can do to kind of transition from going slow to fast. That's what the time remapping technique will try to fix for you. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and select all these clips. I'm gonna delete these, and we're gonna start fresh from the beginning with the time remapping technique, which is the technique that I recommend for the speed ramp transition. So again, we'll go up to this clip here. We will click, drag it into the timeline again. We'll click keep existing settings. Now, instead of grabbing that cut tool, we're going to right click on the clip, go to show clip keyframes, go to time remapping and speed. Now watch the clip as I do this, it changes. Now you have this horizontal bar that goes all the way across. This allows you to change the speed of the clip. You can see as I drag it up and down, the percentage changes. So right now, if I were to let go, the clip would go very fast. If I undo that and drag it down low, the clip will play back in slow motion. So what I want to do, since I know that I want the clip to start in slow motion, I'm going to go ahead and drag this down to the lowest possible percentage amount that I can for this particular clip. Since it was shot at 60 frames a second and we're editing in a 24 frame per second timeline, I can bring it all the way down as low as 40% without skipping frames and getting kind of that jagged slow motion effect that you just want to avoid that if you can. Now, just like with the previous technique I just showed you, you still want to scrub through and look for that spot right where the camera starts to pan, which is about right here. Click on the clip, I'll go up to Effect Controls. Now you'll go to this section called Time Remapping. Now, when I had you right click and select Time Remapping here, that basically allows you to, gives you the option to go up in this Time Remapping section and select keyframes, and then adjust the clip and the timing of that clip based on those keyframes. So I just added a keyframe right here. And what I'm gonna do then is take the mouse, the cursor, and go to the right of that keyframe and drag it up to probably, let's say about 750% or so. Click and let go. And now you can see, if you play it back, slow and then nice and quick. Now, we still have a problem of that transition from slow to fast being too abrupt, right? But there's a way to fix that with this technique. All you have to do is click the keyframe and drag it apart. Now what this will do is this will basically make the transition from slow to fast a little more gradual, and you can even take it a step further. Click this little thing right here, bring it to the side, and that'll make the transition even a little more smooth. Let's say you put your keyframe in place and you decide after the fact that you don't want it there anymore, you want to move it a little bit. All you have to do is click it, hold the Alt key or the Option key if you have a Mac, and move it from left to right. So I may actually move it right about here. So let's play this back and see what this looks like. Play it for about the middle of the clip here. Slow motion. All right. Now it looks a little jagged there. You know, you're still gonna have to do a little tweaking at the end of it, but I think we're in a good place right now and we can move on to transitioning into the next clip. So now I'll go back over here. I'm gonna grab my second clip that I wanna use, and I'm gonna just go ahead and click and drag right onto the timeline here. And this one, because the last clip ended quickly, you know that you're going to go into the next clip also fast, and then it's going to quickly slow down into slow motion. But still, once again, you got to right click, show clip keyframes, time remapping, and speed. And I still want to go ahead and drag this down low since the majority of the clip is going to be in slow motion. Bring it down to 40%, let that go. And what I want to do here is I want to find the spot where the camera stops panning about right probably right when I'm at the top of the pull up there. Go in here, go to the Effect Controls panel, click the keyframe, and then I'm going to drag this up onto the left of the keyframe, drag it all the way up to, again, about 750 or so. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, good. And then I'm going to bring the cursor here, zoom in a little bit, drag this keyframe apart, maybe move it over a little bit so that it hits right when I'm at the top of the pull up there, and let's play this through. Okay, might have come in a little early, so bring it out a little bit, see what this looks like. Okay, I think we can work with that for now. And just like with the other clip, I'm gonna click these, I'm gonna move this a little bit to smooth that transition from fast to slow. And then I'm just gonna bring this clip over to the next one. Now let's play these back side by side and see what it looks like. Okay, so you get the idea, but it's not perfect. So what we need to do is kind of scrub through slowly. Now, if you look and you see as I transition from one to the next, when it gets to the next clip where the camera is in the room, is kind of against those windows when at the end of the first clip, it's already on the squat rack. So we need to kind of adjust some of these clips. So I'm gonna grab the selector tool, pull this one back maybe a little bit, maybe about right here. And then let's see, maybe I can bring this one about to right here. See what this looks like. So if we scrub through one frame at a time, still a little bit early, maybe bring this one to here. And again, this part doesn't have to be 100% exact. Let's bring this back one more. Okay, now let's try and play this back. All right. Now this in and of itself looks pretty good, right? And again, you can tweak the speed if you want to go a little bit faster. You can always make it faster. You can make it a little bit slower. Whatever you want to do, it depends on the style you're going for. So let's recap. So far, we've already transitioned from the first clip into the second clip. Now we need to transition from the second clip into the third clip. And to do that, all we have to do is repeat the steps that we've already done. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, and thanks to the power of editing, I've gone ahead and added those additional keyframes in that last speed ramp transition between the second and the third clip. I even added a little speed ramp section in the middle of the second clip to just kind of keep the tempo up and speed things along a little bit. So let's go ahead and play this back and see what it looks like. Hitting the head bag, boom. Transition, pull-ups. Speed it up a little bit here. Bring it down, and down we go, and into the jump rope. So there you have it. Now, this in and of itself looks okay, but there is one additional thing that we can add to this to kind of give it a little bit of character and to actually mimic a little bit of motion blur from one clip to the next. Now, how we're gonna do that is by using a combination of adjustment layers and the directional blur effect. So let's get into that right now. So what you wanna do is you wanna go to this panel here. Down here, there's a little icon that says new item. You wanna click that. You want to go up to adjustment layer, select that. This little dialog will pop up. It just has the defaults for your sequence settings in there. Just hit OK. You'll see the adjustment layer pop up over here. You want to click and drag this onto your timeline right over one of the transitions here. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to shorten this to about, let's see, I want to shorten it to about the beginning of the first keyframe and the end of the last keyframe there. Then I want to go up into my effects panel here. I'm going to search Directional Blur, and I'm going to drag that right onto the adjustment layer. Now what this will do is this will apply that directional blur to any clips that are below the adjustment layer on the timeline. In this case, it's just these two clips here that are below the adjustment layer, but that's what adjustment layers can do for you in your editing. So what I want to do now is I'll go up here. Actually, I want to place the cursor about right where the cut is between these two clips. And I'll go to my adjustment layer, and I'm going to place a blur length. I'm going to click this little timer icon, and I'm going to place a keyframe there for blur length. I'm going to bring that up to about, let's say 70. 70 looks good. It might be a little too much actually. Let's bring it down to about 65. Okay, so we've got a directional blur of 65. Now, if you remember in this clip exchange here, it goes from left to right. And if you notice, the directional blur is going from top to bottom. So the other thing we want to do here is we want to change the direction to 90, and that'll change the direction from left to right to follow the movement of the camera. That's cool and all, but as you can see, the directional blur kicks in it's strong all the way across and then just automatically turns off. So we need to transition that directional blur so that it comes in smoothly and exits smoothly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come about, let's see, the movement starts about right here maybe. So we wanna add another keyframe on the directional blur here, right here, and bring the blur length down to 0. And then we'll do the same on the other side. When the motion kind of starts to slow down about right here or so, we'll add another keyframe, bring that down to 0. And then what you can do to make it even more smooth is you can right click on this first one, ease it out, right click on the last one, ease it in, and the center keyframe, go to Auto Bezier there, and let's see what this looks like. Now it's super subtle, you barely notice it, but let's play it back with the directional blur on and with it off. Okay, so here's with it on. So that's a little bit of fake motion blur, and now let's turn it off and see what it looks like. Okay, so with it off, it's a little more staccato, I guess you could say. It's just a little bit more harsh going into the next clip. The directional blur adds a little bit of motion blur, kind of softens it up a little bit. So now, instead of having to go through that entire process for the second transition, what you can actually do is copy this this first adjustment layer and use it for the next transition. So what you want to do is you're going to hold down the Alt key or the Option on a Mac, and you want to click and drag the adjustment layer. Release the click and then let go of the Alt or Option button. Now you want to come over here, and once again you want to kind of put the cursor where that Auto Bezier is, and then just kind of line that up right atop of the cut there. So there we go. It's there, you see that everything lines up. Now in this case, the keyframes are a little bit different, so we'll have to drag this adjustment layer out a little bit on this side. Also, you'll notice that the directional blur is still going from left to right, but if you notice, if you remember on these clips, I'll turn this off for a second. If you notice in these clips, it goes from top to bottom. So a directional blur that goes from top to bottom would probably be more applicable here. So let's do that. So all we have to do to change that is change the direction back down. Whoops, too much. Back down to 0. So now let's turn this adjustment layer back on here, and let's see what this looks like as we scrub through. You can see the directional blur coming in. Now I might drag these keyframes out a little bit more on each side since the keyframes are a little bit wider apart. And let's play this through. And there you have it. So you have some nice motion blur. So put it all together. What do you get? Let's take a look. All right, so for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna call that done. If I was doing this for an actual video project, I'd probably still go through and do a little bit more tweaking, maybe move the keyframes around a little bit, obviously do some color grading because this is just some straight log footage that's nice and super desaturated and everything like that. But that's how you do it. And it's a lot more flexible than the rate and cut technique. And it's really gonna make your transitions just look a whole lot better, take them to a whole new level. So that's it for the speed ramp transition tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate a like on this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.